This is attorney at law Jehan Crump-Gibson, and you are tuned into According to Portia.
Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Portia Monique, and today we have attorney at law Jehan Crump-Gibson, and we're cutting through the confusion and debunking the biggest myths around estate planning and probate law, a topic way too many people avoid until it's too late. Jehan Crump-Gibson is here to set the record straight, drop some legal gems, and show us why protecting your legacy isn't just for the wealthy, it's for everyone. Jehan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, I know that you just launched a book as well. It's a matter of life and death, but what inspired you to write that book? Was there a specific personal or professional moment that prompted it or made you realize that you needed to write this book?
I think it was a collection of moments. So I've been practicing in probate and estate planning for 16 years. And over that time, I've just seen families ripped to shreds. And even in situations where there isn't discord amongst family members, we've seen people just experience insurmountable stress for no reason, right? And that's because people didn't plan. So over time, I always do community workshops, things of that sort to get the word out about this important topic. But people would say when I was telling scared straight stories, you should write a book one day. And I waved it off. I didn't think about it. But one day I was at a seminar and it literally hit me. I said,
Mhm,
actually, I probably should,
mhm,
because there's one piece that it's not a discussion that people are comfortable in having. But the second piece is sometimes when folks will go to seminars, there are some brilliant attorneys out there, but how the information is packaged, it's overwhelming. They're
mhm.
using these big $3 million words, and people have a hard time digesting and understanding. So I
Absolutely.
said, I'm going to go to work and write a book that is in plain language, telling you real stories that people can connect with. And hopefully that'll demonstrate why getting your affairs in order is so important.
Absolutely. And the book is definitely that. It's digestible, it's entertaining, it's informing, and it will scare you straight. So some of those stories, I was squinting at like, did this really happen? And why would something like this happen? And if you guys want to know specifically the stories, go out and get the book. Please let us know where can we find the book?
Yes, it's across quite a few online platforms. There's my website, jehancrumpgibson.com. You can also grab it on Amazon. It's on sale on Barnes and Noble, but quite a few retailers that sell online. But those are the top three that folks are ordering from.
And for our listeners, jehancrumpgibson.com. How do you spell that?
Yes, it's Jehan, Jehan, Crump Gibson, Crumpgibson, jehancrumpgibson.com, all one word, no hyphens or anything like that.
Well, thank you so much for dropping that so early. Now, I want to talk about because we often avoid talking about death and legal planning. Why do you think that estate planning is such a taboo subject, especially in communities such as ours?
I think the answer differs slightly amongst generations. I think the older generation, like the great generation and maybe older boomers, there's a general distrust, right? So that was, where folks didn't want to put their money, have
Hmm.
certain conversations with folks because you don't want to include people in your business, right? And then for generations that are younger, again, I think it's one of those you don't know what you don't know things. No
Hmm.
one wants to talk about or think about or focus on the fact that they are going to leave this place, right? It's sad. It doesn't
Oh,
make us
right,
feel good.
right.
So I think that, coupled with the myths that are floating around is what makes it, so hard to
Hmm.
actually have somebody get to the table and sit down and do the planning. But I'd also like to add across the board mindset, no matter what your generation is. Whether we realize it or not, death is a part of life. It is. It's the final cycle, but it's a part of life. And we plan for everything else in life. We plan for baby showers, graduations, retirement parties, everything, the sip, the wind down, anything that you can think of, you'll plan for. Well, you also need to plan for this.
Yeah, absolutely. And you make a key point. Everybody has to endure death. And so why not prepare for it?
Mhm.
Your loved ones will be better off. You probably won't be rolling over in your grave looking at people like Sue's auntie. Sue is a character in the book, y'all. Go get the book. It's listen, we had an issue with Sue. Yeah.
So
Okay, so I'm not going to divulge too much, but go get the book. And you open up the book with a reminder that death is universal. How does that truth shape or reshape the way that we should be thinking about preparation, regardless of whatever our financial status is?
I'm so glad you asked that because the common misconception is that estate planning is for the wealthy. People hear the word estate and they think, I don't have that. That's what celebrities have. That's what rich people have.
Mhm,
It's not true. An estate is whatever you have. So if you got a bank account and a car, that's your estate, right?
mhm,
So you need to plan for what will happen with that estate. And a lot of it, focuses on what happens if you're no longer here, but estate planning also exists for when you are still here. We may still be around, but may not be in the best position to handle our own healthcare decisions or our own financial decisions while we're still here.
mhm,
Estate planning is key for that as well.
mhm,
So, I really wanted to put out there at the beginning of the book that this applies to you, no matter what you have. We have clients come in that say all the time, oh, well, I don't have anything. I don't have an estate. If I had a penny, for how many times people said that, I would be retired and on a beach
mhm,
somewhere. But I don't have an estate. I don't even have anything to plan with you. Or people will, after a seminar or see me out in passing, say, oh, I'm gonna come see you, but I gotta wait until I get this, or I have to wait until I get that. And that's simply not true. You plan for what you have going on right now, and then you can
mhm.
always make changes in the future as you grow your assets.
Mm. I appreciate you saying that because done is always better than perfect, and you can perfect it later. So just get it
Correct.
done and then perfect it later. Now, I want to move into the other half of the title of the book, right? So I want to talk specifically about probate and give us the full name of the book because once I saw it, it kind of sparked my interest and I said, "Oh, okay, she not playing." So give us the entire name of the book and then we'll start with the basics on what exactly is probate.
Sure. So the name of the book is A Matter of Life and Death, and then the sub tagline is what I like to call it is How to Keep Probate Court Out Your Business.
How to keep probate
Obviously,
court.
during that, and that is the key, in obviously when you're dealing with sickness and in death, and that is the key. Probate court, and I'll just go into what it is.
Yes, very plainly, layman's terms, tell us exactly what probate court is and why everybody, it seems like, ends up there.
Yes. So I used to say years ago, by the way, that probate court was a step above criminal court, and I've changed my mind. It's worse. People go to jail
It's
from probate court.
worse.
It is worse. When I say
Mhm.
it is, they get it popping up in probate. It's
Oh,
a major because you got to think about it. There are emotions, right? Running
so
high.
is it open? Is it, can people just, so I can go to
Anybody.
probate court tomorrow and just watch the shenanigans?
Just watch the shenanigans and hear all the terrible things and all the business and all the stuff that
Oh,
comes up. They
oh,
are public proceedings, right? So they are open, whether it's on Zoom and there's a YouTube stream, or you can walk
oh,
into a courthouse. You're going to hear all of the business,
okay.
all of the goods, and we want to avoid that, right?
Yes, right.
So a probate court, and they're set up in various different counties, that's going to be the court that steps in if someone does not have a plan done and someone has to be appointed to handle healthcare decisions for them or financial decisions for them. The court will also step in to handle disposition, meaning who gets property after someone passes away that doesn't have their affairs in order. Now, sometimes you can have your affairs in order, and if some people are just wanting to be ridiculous, they still can file things in probate court. So there are
Mhm.
times where people will have documents done and issues will still end up in probate court. But the lion's share of things that are in probate court are because someone did not have a plan and a
Mhm.
decision needs to be made about their property, or again, if they're still living, their healthcare decisions.
Now, quoting your words, you said it gets popping up in probate court. Tell us exactly what does that mean,
Yes.
emotionally speaking?
Yes. So it will surprise folks to hear how there'll be siblings in their 60s going back to stuff that happened when they were teenagers because they're mad over what somebody wants to happen with the house or what we want to happen with daddy's clothes. And I'll tell you this, the big fights don't always happen over the largest pots of money. I think the most drama that we experience when we're dealing with the estates is not over a lot in the grand scheme of things.
Mm-hmm.
One time we had a case that went on for about 3 years and we ended up settling it the morning of trial. We were going to trial over about $5,000 worth of stuff in a storage unit. So all these sides are paying lawyers hundreds of dollars an hour because they are literally still mad about things when they were teenagers, and they're in their 50s, at this point. So what comes across when you have a hearing, someone will show up. We've had siblings accusing each other of, contributing to their parents' deaths. We've had folks, oh, it gets nuts, accuse folks of stealing, and sometimes they are stealing. Sometimes it's actually true. So that type of stuff comes out, and then they like to bring out things from the personal lifestyle, people's life choices and name calling, all sorts of things. All of that comes out in probate court.
Oh my. That's terrible.
It is.
It
It
is.
is.
I don't even know how to sugarcoat terrible. That's terrible.
Yeah.
Let's specifically, we started off by mentioning we were going to debunk some myths and talk about some misconceptions, right? What's the biggest misconception that people have about wealth and estate planning? And I think you alluded to it earlier, but I want to
Yeah.
specifically talk just about that. Hmm.
Sure. Yes, I did. I think the biggest misconception that I see is that people think they have to have a certain amount of assets to have a plan.
Hmm.
My response to that is always you plan for where you're at. So, frankly, if you're an adult, meaning if you're 18, and I know this is crazy because we look at 18-year-olds as kids still, right? Whether they're our children, our godchildren, nieces, and nephews, they are still kids, but the law looks at them as adults, right? And
Hmm.
so you can't step in if your baby that's in 19 at college or away, wherever, something happens, you can't just automatically step in because you mama and handle those things like you
Yeah.
used to before, right?
Yeah.
So you even have to start off at 18 with some basic documents that we can get into. And
Hmm.
then obviously as you move along, you get your first job, you get a bank account, you may eventually buy a house, you may start a business. So eventually you'll get things and we may have to do more advanced planning, right? But to
Hmm.
start out, there are some simple nuts and bolts in place that everybody needs, whether you are just on Social Security or whether
Hmm.
you have 12 businesses and 5 houses.
Okay. Okay. Now, what's the biggest myth that you hear about estate planning, and why is that myth so dangerous to believe?
Yes. The biggest myth is when something happens to me, my people, my kids, whoever your people are, will automatically get my stuff. So some folks, whether that's a spouse, whether that's children, whether those are siblings, whoever in your mind is your family or your loved ones, the common misconception or the myth is they'll automatically get my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So in some cases, they may get your stuff, right? But it's not automatic.
Mm-hmm.
So the rule of thumb, and it depends on where you are, but for the most part, it's the same across the board.
Mm-hmm.
But specifically in Michigan and a lot of other states, if there is property in your name alone when you pass away, it has to go to probate. There are no exceptions, even if you are married. So oftentimes we end up going to probate court for spouses that have been living in a house with the spouse for 20, 30, 40, 50. Week, we had someone call, this widow is 90 and she's not on the house. So we
Oh,
have to go to probate court. This house has been paid off since 91.
oh
Her
my.
husband passed. She wasn't on it with him. And of course, she calls in saying, "Oh, I just need to get added to the deed." Right. And I'm like, we can't do that now. We actually have to go through probate because your husband passed away with property in his name alone.
Mm-hmm.
So that my family will automatically get this or this will
Mm-hmm.
automatically happen. That's a huge myth and is very dangerous because that's why the probate court dockets are so heavy. Folks just assume my husband or whoever is automatically going to get it.
So, what if a will is in place? Will is that still a myth, or is that still a misconception? If a will is in place, I'll still get automatically get whatever.
I am so glad you said that. That is myth number two that we see. So that is the huge one. So myth number two is if I have a will, whoever I name in there will automatically get my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Newsflash, a will is only an instruction sheet. A will does not avoid probate court. A
Mm,
will also can't override beneficiary designations. And here's what I mean by that. You put in your will that I want Billy, Tim, and Bob to get my property equally, right?
mhm, mhm.
But you list on your insurance policy only Billy. The will can't control where the insurance company cuts the check, because if Billy
Mhm.
is the only beneficiary on the life insurance policy, Billy is going to be the only one to get the check. Now, maybe you hope Billy does the right thing and splits the money up according to what your will says, but I can tell you from experience, most times Billy doesn't do it. We see that all the time. People get money in their hands, and the tune changes completely. So a will is only going to direct what happens with the property after you go to probate. So let's go back to our
Mhm.
example about the house, right? If
After
you go to probate, because a will can't avoid probate. So if you leave a house in your name alone, okay, and you have a will that says my daughter will get my house, well, she'll eventually get it, but the will won't go around the probate process if the house is still in your name alone. So again, a will is only an instruction sheet. And if it's valid, it has to be followed. I'm sure we all heard some rumblings about Aretha Franklin's estate when it opened up, especially if you
yes.
were in Michigan, but definitely across the country. But that was the case there. Aretha had a couple of handwritten wills in the couch, and those aren't valid in Michigan. So the
You ain't
court
have to
had to,
say it like that.
she had a couple in the couch.
They
They was
were
down there
literally in the couch. If you are not
literally.
from Michigan, this is absolutely 1000% true.
Literally in the couch. I was not over exaggerating and using and sometimes I do that, but I was not over exaggerating. These
Right.
handwritten wills were in the couch. So the
Mhm.
last one that was found in the couch, and the court did end up admitting it. It was a whole jury trial and all of the above, and the court ruled that it was valid. But obviously, that didn't avoid probate, right? So now the property does get split up, how that handwritten will said, to
Mhm.
Riri's loved ones, but it's still in probate.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And specifically talking about that one, I know you followed it, but you may not have specifics on it. How long did her estate stay in probate court?
I am glad that you asked that. Her estate will likely never close, and I will explain why in a minute. So her estate is still open. Aretha has royalties. You know, she has things that are constantly going to come in, right? So if something happens to Joe Schmo on the street tomorrow and he doesn't have royalties that are due to him from music, books, things of that sort,
Mhm.
then the faucet is cut off at that point. So
Mhm.
basically you're only dealing with Joe's assets at the time that he passed.
Mhm.
With Aretha and other celebrities that pass, there's constantly going to be income coming in, right? Because
Mhm.
royalties survive somebody. They don't go away just
Right.
because they pass away. So those are going to be things that are coming in through her estate. So the estate has to stay open to manage them.
Oh,
So I
wow.
don't know, and I don't know for a fact, I don't know what her royalty situation
Right,
is,
right. Mhm.
but if she's due them, it's likely that the estate can be open for quite some time.
Wow. That's so eye-opening. Okay, let's get into some practical steps that people can take. Some practical and actionable steps that that will help people, right? So for someone who has not even started any estate planning, what are the first 3 things that they need to do right now to get their affairs in order?
Yes. So I say figure out your what, right? And those are two broad categories. So you don't have to go overthink this thing. Think about who you want to be the point person to manage your affairs, right? In two different situations. If you become ill and can't handle them yourself, or you pass away, that who is very important, because it has to be somebody that you trust, right?
Yeah.
And somebody that can do the job. So
Mhm.
there may be somebody that you trust to take your minor children, but you wouldn't trust them to run a lemonade stand, so they shouldn't be over your money, right? So we want to be cognizant when we're making these choices
Mhm.
and be honest about who our people are. We know who our people are. So
Mhm.
that's the first part of your who. The second part of your who is who you want to leave your stuff to, right?
Mhm.
The next is your what you have and what you want to happen with it.
Mhm.
So if it's a house, what do you want to happen with the house, right? If it's life insurance policies, bank accounts, whatever that money is going to look like, what you want to happen. If you have minor children, or if you have an adult child that has special needs, or something similarly, that may look a little bit different, but
Mhm.
that's as simple as it gets when you start your who
Mhm.
and your what. Now,
Mhm.
obviously, if you come to a lawyer to get it done, we take it from there, to
Mhm.
put the plan together. But the
Mhm.
first part is making those important decisions about your who and your what.
Yeah. And I'm so happy you said minor children, because the next question has to deal with beneficiaries. What
Mhm.
are some of the most common and most costly mistakes that people make when designating beneficiaries?
100%. So the first would be leaving minor beneficiaries on accounts. So whether this is retirement, life
I'm
insurance,
guilty.
everybody does it because you
Yes.
think in your mind when you get the pile, okay, I'm doing this for my kids,
Right.
so I'm going to leave my kids as beneficiaries, right?
Mhm,
So
mhm,
natural thought.
mhm.
Unfortunately, minors, despite what they tell you on TikTok and all the other things, you put this in your kid's name. Okay, I hear it. Minors don't have legal capacity to contract and do certain things. So
Mhm.
when it comes time for an insurance company or a retirement account and they look at the beneficiary and they see that they're a minor, they're going to ask for what's called conservatorship papers. So
Mhm.
basically, there needs to be an adult appointed by a court to receive those funds on behalf of the minor until they reach the age of majority. So what does
Mhm.
that mean? It means probate court. So naming the minor as a beneficiary, that may get you over the first hurdle so you don't have to go to probate court for the insurance policy, right? Because there's a
Mhm.
named beneficiary. It's not in your name alone with no beneficiary, but
Mhm.
then someone still has to go to probate court to receive the property from the minor for the
Mhm.
minor. So
Cool.
that's a common thing that happens. Folks leaving minor, whether these are parents or grandparents, it happens all the time. And we end up in court because people don't know that that's an additional step that has to
Right.
be taken.
Yeah. Well, I am definitely guilty of doing that. When I worked in corporate, had a 401k, kids was young.
Hmm.
50%.
Yep.
There you go. But what I do want to know, because I never changed them, but they aged out, right?
Yeah.
So do I have
Yep.
to do some type of designation or go back in? I do?
Well, it depends on how you want them to get their money. So,
Okay.
a lot of times when people are doing planning, and we go back to when your kids are not minors anymore, so when
Yeah.
they're 18,
Hmm.
but if they're 18, 19, 20, just because they're adults, that doesn't mean that you want them to get a large pot of money at
I
that
got you.
point,
Right.
right?
Sue.
So, exactly. Because I know how I would have been if I would have gotten a big pot of money at 20 years old. It would have been gone. It I don't even want to
Yeah.
talk about it because I
Right.
was I was nuts. So you don't want that. A lot of parents don't want that to happen. So they
Right.
want to have some options, some more flexibility
Hmm.
instead of my child's just gonna get $150,000 check if they're
Right.
19 years old or
Right.
however much it is. You may
Hmm.
not want that.
Okay, opposite end of the spectrum, someone dealing with aging parents who haven't even started the planning process. What is a respectful way? Because a lot of the times at that age, parents can push back and not be as willing to help and assist and give you what you need so that you can do what you need to do. So what is a respectful way to start that conversation before it's too late?
Where do we even start? Because nobody teaches the course on raising parents. I just want to
Girl.
throw that out there. Because nobody teaches it. But what you can do, and oftentimes people will call our office and tell, can you please be the bad person? Like I'm gonna bring mama in and you sit down and we have no problem doing that if you're not comfortable.
Mhm.
But approaching mom or dad or auntie or grandmother or whoever and say, listen, I know that, we don't like to talk about it, but if something ever happens to you, we want to make sure that your stuff is in order so that we don't have to do anything public. We can handle it privately and that nobody can dispute anything. You don't have to worry about us fighting with each other.
Mhm.
So, normally, when you approach it like that and present a scenario where they feel like they'll be in a place of comfort because their loved ones won't be fighting, and again, mentioning the private piece so that it doesn't
Mhm.
have to be out in probate court. A
Right.
lot of
Right.
individuals end up being appreciative and more open after they hear that.
Got it. Okay. Perfect. It's all about framing, right? And a lot of the times the lawyer can frame it better than we can because we probably be real frustrated at that point. Like,
Yes.
look,
Listen,
look,
Ma, you not about to
listen.
leave me here with so and so. Yeah.
Love it, love it, love it. Couple more questions. I have so many, but let's just go with a couple because we want to make sure that this is digestible as well.
Hmm.
What are three facts that you wish every family understood about probate court and estate planning?
So I'd say the top one, and this is kind of connecting back to your last question that you asked me in terms of talking to aging parents before it's too late. Too late is what I want to talk on. We often have people calling saying, "Hey, mom is in a coma, or mom's, has dementia, or this has happened. I need to get power of attorney." And we always tell people, you can't get power of attorney. It has to be given to you by someone. And
Mm,
it has to be given to you by someone that has sound mind. So if
mhm.
somebody's in a coma and a ventilator is breathing for them 100%, they can't make out a power of attorney in that instance.
Yeah.
And in that instance, unfortunately, you'll have to go to probate court to get permission to make decisions. It does not matter how you're related to the person,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I would say leading with not letting it be too late, because a lot of times people will not pop into action until it's too late to do
Until
anything
it's a
about something.
situation where your parent is laying up in the hospital and now you scrambling and you got three, four sisters and they
Exactly.
all, I get it.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. The second one is as it relates, and we talked about this a little bit more, knowing your family and planning for their future in terms of what you leave them. So, for example, if you know that you have three kids that have never gotten along, maybe you don't want to leave the house to the three of them, right? Because maybe if they get the house and they start bickering and so isn't paying their share of the taxes and the insurance, and this starts happening, and so wants to move Bubba in and whatever else, what's going to end up happening if they have conflict is they will go to court, and the court will force the sale of the property anyway. So it won't be in the family anymore. So think about your people and their dynamics. And yes, maybe you want to leave it to family members or keep it in the family, but is that something that's practical?
Yeah.
So really having that conversation and saying, okay, if is what I want to do even feasible? Because I know my kids, I know my siblings, I know my nieces and nephews, and I know how they get down. And that's while I'm still here. So can you imagine how it will be once you leave? I'm trying to tell y'all, because y'all leave me behind with these people and they lose it every time.
Yeah.
So that would be the second one. And then the final one will, again, and I can't remember what you said at the beginning of our time here together, but it was so good. It perfect is better than, or done better than
Oh,
perfect.
done
Was
is
that it?
always better than perfect. You perfect
Yes.
it later. Hmm.
Yes. And so that is the point. Again, you don't have to get things to a perfect place, right? Because life, nobody's perfect. We're all
Yeah.
humans. Everything is going to
Right.
be, something is going to happen. Something can go wrong. Everything is not going to be up in a neat, pretty bow. Everybody's family dynamic is not, the picket fence and, the traditional family, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Let's just recognize it and let's plan for it based on what we have going on today.
Whew, that was a lot to take in, just kind of breathe with it and sit with it and make sure that you are comprehending everything that you are saying. Um, breathe through it, y'all. Breathe. Going back to the book, one final question on the book. What do you hope readers walk away with after reading A Matter of Life and Death?
I really hope they walk away understanding how important it is to plan. Okay. Whether that is you going to an attorney formally or trying to work with some of the resources that we provided in the book to at least have something down. But I did it specifically so that people would be able to dispel some of the myths that are out there,
Mhm.
have a basic understanding about the types of things that would go to probate court, and do what they need to do to avoid probate. That's
Yeah.
what I want.
Yeah. Okay. And if they can do something today, even if they're still feeling overwhelmed and or intimidated by the process, if they can do something today, what would you suggest?
So here's what I would suggest. We mentioned about the wheels and Riri's couch. Okay. If it's not perfect, listen, and obviously this is going to be different by state in terms of what's acceptable,
Mhm.
but at least put your wishes down in writing so we know
Yeah.
what you wanted,
Yeah.
right? So if
Yeah.
you're going to leave this place, you can put and be as specific as possible. Talk about what you want to happen with the house, what you
Yeah.
want to happen with bank accounts, jewelry, art, tools, things of that sort.
Mhm.
So put that in detail in your handwriting, sign it, date it, ask the neighbors across the street to witness it for you, right? You can
Mhm.
take that one step.
Mhm.
A lot of states, depending on where you are, have what we call uniform powers of attorney. So you can go online and download like a medical power of attorney or a
Mhm.
financial power of attorney that will say who will handle my affairs if I become unable to,
Mhm.
if I'm sick and I can't do it myself. Those are the three things that you can do today
Mhm.
to have something in place. God forbid something happened to you.
And you have templates in the back of your book as well, so that's a
Right,
great resource as well.
right.
Tell us, where can we follow you, get more
Yes.
tips, learn more about what it is that you are doing and how you're helping our community? And then how do people buy that book again?
So you can find me on Instagram. My handle is fashionable, but the way it's spelled, it has law in the middle. Little interesting twist there. So it's
Mhm.
Fashion Law Bull One. That's how you can find me on Instagram. I do dressing room tips sometimes. I post my news segments when I do local appearances on Fox, and we're always digging into probate and estate planning issues. We talk about some other stuff as well. You can find me on Facebook by my government name.
Mhm.
Jehan Crump-Gibson, also on LinkedIn by my government name.
Mhm.
I always try to provide resources through those platforms. And then for the book, again, you can go to my website, my personal website, jehancrumpgibson.com. That's Jehan. You can also find the book on Amazon. I know y'all love y'all Prime. Get into it. Or also, again, the third popular source that people are getting online is at Barnes and Noble.
Okay, I love it. And I would be remiss, like we got so involved in our conversation about probate court, avoiding it, what we need to do, the things we need to put in place today. I did not mention that you are one of Detroit's fashion icons. Okay. That would explain her IG name. She is definitely fashionable, and she's one of the most known fashionable ladies. So make sure you guys follow her so that you can see her fashion tips and see how she arrives at every event, because that's what she does. She doesn't just attend events, she arrives. Okay.
I love that. Start using that. If I could borrow that, would be
You
fantastic.
can have it, girl. She arrives. She has arrived. Okay, listen, y'all. Jehan just gave us the blueprint and a wake up call. Estate planning is not a luxury, it's a necessity. It's not about how much you have, because, like she said, if you got a penny, you have an estate. It's about what happens to what you have. So let this be your sign. Start today. Don't wait for a crisis. Don't end up in probate court, because it's ghetto there from what
Oh,
I'm
oh, y'all don't even know. Yeah, I have
it's
no idea.
ghetto. And start the conversation today. Protect what you have, protect your peace, protect your loved ones, protect yourself from going to jail, and secure your legacy, y'all,
Please.
because y'all family is way too important not to. We appreciate you, Jehan. Thank you
Thank
so much.
you. I
We're
appreciate
gonna
you.
have you come on again, because this was too good.
Happily. Yeah, we got to continue the
We have
conversation.
to.
Have to. I will come back anytime.
Thank you so much. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
you. Take care.